And now, tonight's In Conversation. I'm sure all of you recognize this young man here. Many of you will have been at our annual Royal Ballet School visits over the years and seen, I hope I don't offend you, this rather cheeky young man with tremendous personality and verve for life. And we all thought, he's going somewhere. And we were all quite proud of ourselves. We picked him out and he went somewhere. Fortunately, it's just across the street to the Royal Ballet, so we get to see him. And tonight is our great pleasure to have Marcelino Sambé here with us for our In Conversation guest. We've looked forward to this for a long time, and it's going to be terrific. And Sarah Crompton, thank you so much for doing the interview. A well-known ballet writer, author, and just, it's going to be a super night. So those of you who are in the audience, there will be a chance to ask questions. And for those of you online, if you have a question, please type it into the chat box. You'll find that on the bottom of your screen, and we will get to the questions, as many as we can. So now, that's me. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And now I would like you to sit back and enjoy Marcelino Sambé and Sarah Crompton.
It's very nice to be here with you, and I am very grateful to you all for coming out tonight, and indeed to the Zoom audience, which is fabulous to think there are lots of people listening to us. And we're quite lucky, I gather, to have Marcelino here, because he came back via Heathrow last night, so he's a survivor.
I made it.
He made it this morning. Why were you in Heathrow? What were you flying back from?
So I just had an incredible time back at home in Lisbon, where I come from. I danced with the National Ballet of Portugal, 3 performances of Giselle alongside Ana Rose. And it was so special, not only dancing at home again and giving a bit back to that audience that so loves me, but as well to bring Ana Rose with me. And she made a fantastic debut as Giselle. I wish everyone could have seen it. She really lived the character, and the audience really connected with her. And it was just so special to sit there and just witness this incredible ballerina doing something so special. It was really, really, really interesting.
Is the production very different? Is it quite different?
So I'm a huge fan of Peter Wright's production, so I'm very defendant of what I see here, and I know what my Giselle looks like and what the production that I like to see looks like. But then you have to be kind of accepting of seeing other ideas. And obviously I've been very aware of Alicia Alonso's legacy of Giselle in National Ballet of Cuba. And, you know, the style is really beautiful, although very different. There's something really special about it. So they were doing that production, right, so it's very Cuban. But, you know, me and Ana Rose having to arrive there with only 2 days to rehearse with the company, we did bring a lot of Sir Peter Wright's influence into the production, which was so well welcomed by the other artists that were doing Giselle and Albrecht. The different other nights, they started asking to what's behind that mime and that mime, and then it kind of became a bit of a mixture between the two worlds, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. And you're always amazingly busy. I'm always kind of staggered when we communicate, you know, how many things you've taken on and how you're switching from kind of quite contemporary to, you know, classical princes and all the rest of it. We'll talk about that later. But I thought it would be nice for people to start with Mayerling, because I don't know how many of you had a chance to see Marcelino and Mayerling, but it was very special for the audience. And I was really fascinated to see it, because I think that you know, that cheeky chappy that Susan describes, I'm not sure that a lot of us would have thought that, you know, 10 years later, you would be dancing Prince Rudolph. So how did you find it, doing the part?
So I love history. I love reading history. I love knowing more about what has been here before, and it's a subject that really intrigued me. And that's the Crown Prince Rudolph, his history. He's a person, he had feelings, he was an all-rounded human being, and there's just so much to his path, and so much that one can relate with, all the his childhood wasn't easy, and the more I read about it, the more I connected with him, and I thought like I had so many things in my head about what I thought Crown Prince Rudolph would be and dancing that part in that ballet would be. And then I got into a studio, and I was getting coached by Edward Watson, which is one of my favorite dancers ever. And so that's already like a massive plus to be in the studio with someone that you so appreciate. And then we started working on it, and it didn't feel like nothing like I thought it was going to be like,
Right.
Suddenly,
In what ways was it different?
it wasn't as transformative in a way that I was like, I really wanted to feel it, but you can only feel these things if you really allow space and reality to kick in. And that was the big work I did with Ed. Instead of me having to do what I expected the feeling to be like, I have to really trust that the choreography, the people around me would be enough, and that I'm enough. Me standing there, thinking of what is happening in that scene, it's enough, rather than me having to project. And that has been probably like my favorite thing about this whole process, feeling enough, which I think so often we don't. We always want to be more and reach more and grow more. And I think sometimes the growth is in such little things. And I think that is the most beautiful thing about this whole process of doing Mayerling, is that I've grown to believe that I'm enough.
Right.
And that the little nuances that I believe are really important, and they connect with the audience.
Yeah. I thought it was, I thought it was really, it's really interesting that you say that, because I thought watching it, and I watched a lot of the performances and, really enjoyed them all. I mean, I think the amazing thing about Mayerling is that there is always something to watch, and suddenly you think, God, those, 4 Hungarian plotters are brilliant, or whatever. There's always something that catches your eye. But I was very interested in how you and Francesca did it, of having a sense of sort of rooting yourself very much in the choreography and just, exactly what you're saying, of letting it speak, really. What was the hardest thing for you tackling that?
Physically, it was quite daunting. It's a lot of partnering, which is something that I love about classical dance, and especially in the Kenneth Macmillan style. I think this is something that it's so unique to this house and the way that we work here. That was a big challenge, but I mean, the talent in this opera house and the Royal Ballet is incredible. Every lady that I danced with was just supreme. The 4 Hungarian officers, just like they listened to me as well, because I've seen this production a lot, and I went back obviously to David Wall a lot, to that video, that beautiful video that there is, and his relation with the 4 Hungarian officers was like a bit cheeky. There was a cheekiness between them, and there was something more leveled rather than aggression. And I tried, and they were so welcoming to do that for me, because obviously with other Crown Prince, they might be a bit more forceful and aggressive. But I just thought, like, with my stature, with the position that I'm handing, I think I'm going to try and play this. So it was so welcoming. But I thought the hardest thing of all was really that process of like believing that less is more, and quality and nuance is. It's so with such a well-educated audience as well, that we have audiences that have seen this for so many years. I think little things really speak volumes.
Yeah. Did you feel you got there? I was talking to somebody after, and they said that they always thought the terrible thing for Royal Ballet principals was it's like playing Hamlet for 2 nights, that you only get a couple of goes or 3 goes. I mean, did you feel that you got there with it? Were you happy with your performance?
I've accepted that this was my first step on a massive ladder. It will take years for me to ever, and I don't know if you'll ever feel like I've achieved anything in it, but for me it was very fulfilling, and I felt personal growth, a huge personal growth, but not even just physically, but as well mentally, and the way that I see myself as a performer. And even then, flying the next day to go and do Giselle in Portugal, I found something in Albrecht that when I did here at the Royal Ballet last year, I couldn't find it. I couldn't find that CAD in the beginning. I couldn't find that connection, that it was kind of loose and not right in the beginning with him. And this time I was doing it on a rose, and I felt him. I was like, now I understand what this guy wants. He comes here, and this doesn't mean much to him until later, until he actually starts developing things. And that's why these ballets are so important, because they build you on for so much more.
Yeah, they do. I mean, it is wonderful, I think, to see that and, you know, to watch the progress of your career. And also, I mean, this year has been so amazing. I sort of lose track of the years, but this period has been so amazing, because you also did Like Water for Chocolate, which was such a huge creation to do that. What was that like? Because that was your first really big, I mean, I'm going to come on to Crystal in a moment, but you know, a 3-act created part.
I mean, I really trust Christopher Wilden. I mean, all the ballets that he has done for the company have been, I think, in my opinion, masterpieces, modern, contemporary masterpieces of what ballet should be today, and the stories we tell today, and how we tell them. So I knew I was in safe hands, and then alongside as well, Francesca Hayward, which for me is like a superb artist. So I knew I was in the right place at the right time, and you know, it just felt like that. But the process isn't easy creating a full length, obviously, because in the opera house we are always very busy with other productions. So physically it was very demanding, psychologically as well, because you want to make sure that you're doing something that will, you know, be challenging. And like Mayerling, I wonder if David Wall, when he was creating it, had the notion that it was going to be so exhausting and so daunting for the next generations to come in. Obviously, Pedro is a different character, because he's more of he's leading it, but he's not. I think he's everything happens to him. He doesn't lead the ballet. So he's a very fragile character. But I was always very conscious of wanting to make it unique and special, and I wanted Chris to be really proud of it as well. So you do get that side of it, but I loved every cheeky and every second time I had with Francesca in the studio. She's such a well-rounded human, and that really helps the process, you know. And
you've danced together a lot, haven't you? Your friendship's quite sort of deep, really, of working with her. When you were doing Like What, did you feel that you can contribute? I mean, because one of my early memories of you is one of the pieces that you did for Draftworks. You know, it's sort of a really early choreographic piece where everybody had really brilliant costumes. I remember that everybody had very beautiful costumes, and you know, and you always have been interested in choreography and in analysing how dance works. Did you feel that when you were in a studio making it, that you could sort of help work things out? How did that work?
Yeah, it was quite interesting, because I came from the back of doing as well the cellist, which the cellist I really felt like I was trying to be really involved in that process of like being brave to give an opinion and feel really involved. And then when I worked with Chris, obviously Chris and Kathy Matter are very different choreographers, but I think Chris is really welcoming, and he loves challenging the dancer, and you give an idea, and the idea then is turned upside down, and you're just like, wow, like how can he see it that way? And that is so exciting, because that's him. But that's the lucky thing we have at the Opera House as well. We have Wayne McGregor, which as well works in riddles almost, and that prepares you to be honest and brave enough and humble enough to put yourself in a line to do something ridiculous, but actually might turn out special.
Yeah. Do you always prepare the same way? Do you do background reading and you know, think about, read around, because both the cellist and Like Water for Chocolate, there is quite a lot of history. And Mayerling.
Yeah, so with Marling, I read all of the books that I could find, and it was quite hard to find on Amazon all these things that I had heard about, and they really helped me, especially learning more about his beginnings and how he was treated as a child, and his connection with his mother and his tutors. And I think that really, I love that vulnerable side of him, and to understand why sometimes he might go a bit wild and might have these crazy ideas about life and death. And it really made me think that this person could be real, because sometimes in ballet or in the performances, things can become a bit overwhelming and not honest. And I feel like it was nice to read that. With the cellist was the same, like even seeing Jacqueline Dupré playing the cello, you could feel the sense, the love and the passion, and that was alive. Yeah. So I, in a way, had to replicate her life in movement, the way that cello would move. And then Like Water for Chocolate, I was in a pandemic and I was quite depressed. Was reading quite a lot. So
yes,
then
because you had to wait a lot for a long time.
A lot for that happened, yeah. And we heard about this ballet, and Chris didn't tell me what card I was playing, anyways. But I kind of just said, "Oh, I'll read the book," and I thought the book was a bit strange and crazy, and I did not expect that to become a ballet. And then when we started working, I was like, "It is a ballet, and it's an incredible idea." Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is a book that you read and you think, how's this going to be a ballet?
And there's recipes and everything. Yeah.
But it was a wonderful thing, really, to be part of, and must have been brilliant for you. How, I feel that, to some extent, that your trajectory, this is perhaps wrong, but slightly altered when you did Flight Pattern. So up until then, you'd obviously been doing sort of brilliantly, and had done a lot of virtuoso roles and a lot of comic roles, and were playing the lead. I think you'd done Don Q before you did Fille. You'd done, so you'd done a lot. Did you feel Flight Pattern change things for you and working with Crystal, or is that me being wrong?
No, so it was really interesting because obviously there's definitely a path that a dancer like me with my natural ability to do this kind of roles would follow, and I was very happy, and I'm very happy that I have that to me, because I could be such a adagio and melancholic dancer that those roles wouldn't come to me, and that I would have not have had so much fun, like La Fille and Two Pigeons and all these incredible. I love Ashton, all these Ashton roles, Oberon and all these things, which are incredible. And then it's just, and I want to make peace with that, and I always believe that as a dancer you have to grind on the things that are natural for you to really captivate an audience, and I definitely capitalize on that, and I always want to make sure that those roles are, very close to me, because those are the ones that really come out of me with the most naturalism, I would say. But then working with Crystal Pite, I had what it was shocking to me is that I had no expectations. I heard the subject and I thought, wow, this is such such an important piece to be made right now. And I was very young, and obviously I've had incredible experiences in my life, but nothing that would justify ever me getting to play that part in her ballet, and then suddenly when I got to do it, it was very surprising to me. And again, it's one of those moments that I look at myself and I'm like, wow, I can be so much more to other people. Why don't I see myself in that? Where is that inside me? And then when I start working on these roles and I start working alongside Kristen McNally, a mature, very special lady with a lot of depth, and I was like, wow, I have to find that in me. And I think that was a moment that I was like, wow, I think this is it. This is what the career can give you. The career can teach you things about yourself you didn't know. Right. And that's what it's so beautiful, that moment with her. Yeah.
And you returned to it this time, even though you are quite busy. And what was it like going back to it, being a bit older, having done more different roles? What was it like returning to that first section of Flight Pattern?
I think last year or the year before we did Solo Echo by Crystal Pite, which is a very physically demanding piece, and we worked for months on sliding and the technique, because obviously I like contemporary, but I know that it's such a different work, and you have to put a lot of work into it if you really are going to do it right, and we worked so hard. So coming back physically, I felt, wow, much more prepared physically, not hurt myself, because the first time I did that Flight Pattern, I used to finish, couldn't move my neck, my back, my knees. I used to feel like I just done Mayerling. Not really, but like physically really destroyed. This time I was much more kind to myself. And then this time as well, I tried to again project less and feel it more. Right. And it felt much more vivid. Right. And I had a great time with Kristen. We shared tears, because it really is like it's the hopelessness of the piece, and what can we do? Yeah. And we tell these stories, and it's really special.
Yeah, and it is a piece actually that to some extent I know conforms to your own view about what dance can do, that you like dance that communicates, you like dance that kind of pushes the form. What would you like to see you like happen more in dance? And what is it that you love so much that makes you?
I think in dance, one thing that is so special about dancing and doing a production and putting a show on is collaboration. I think we can never forget how important collaboration is, and like even having like someone like Wayne McGregor coming into this opera house, you know, becoming this amazing choreographer here and bringing all this outside experience and making it on us. He has created a whole new technique, a whole new way of moving for ballet dancers, and that's special. I think the more we challenge the views of what I think classical dance as it is, it's beautiful. We have to keep it. The tradition is so important because without the past we cannot move forward, because then we lose track of the progression and style and beauty, and I think that's has to always be there. But then as well is what has been done a lot here in the opera house is bringing these interjectors that come in and give you a complete new vision of what ballet can be and what ballet dancers can become. And I feel like when we tell stories, I think we must be thinking of the same thing. How can we shake things up for a world that has seen a lot of the same kind of stories being told, and how can we, you know, bring them more maybe to the 21st century and tell more current, like a bit like Crystal did in a way, and Wayne and Chris do. Like, how can we tell stories that really mean a lot to us today?
Yeah. You're just on the Wayne subject. You're about to go into Woolf Works, which I mean I remember sort of feeling thrilled by that because it was such a moment, the first time you saw it, of seeing somebody really try and redefine how a 3-act ballet worked, and I just remember the excitement of suddenly seeing that. What's it like, and what's it like to go into it? How are you finding it? Because you were away first time round.
Yeah, well, I was away for all the times that Woolf Works has been on, so I've never really done any other role in it. And I remember being so thrilled back then to be able to finally be in a Wayne ballet, because I was never in a Wayne ballet before. So I was already in that, and I was very conscious to be in the room with that star, and then as well with alongside Alessandra and everything. And I remember having that sense as well of like, wow, how can stories being told in this new way, and just thinking what a brave man he is, and it's just being in complete awe, and now returning back to it. And I'm doing Edward Watson's part, which is like, again, mind-blowing to me to have developed in Wayne's vision, have developed into that part. I mean, that for me is the greatest gift I could get right now in this season after doing Mayerling and wanting to explore more of that emotion and all those things. And again, it gives me a great reason to read a bit more Virginia Woolf and try to understand who Septimus is and, you know, how he fits in the story. And I love that kind of stuff. I think it really enriches my life as well. It's not just professionally and to do a beautiful part, but as well makes me more cultured and more excited, and all those things are really, really nice.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the brilliant things about ballet. I've always said that people often ask me why I like ballet and dance. And I always say because it is like an entry point to all the arts. I mean, like everything I know about Crown Prince Rudolph actually came from reading up about Mayerling, and you know, it is an expansive form. And I love the way that you always seem to see that. You go and see a lot of other work, don't you? I mean, yeah, we always see each other there. Hello. I mean, what do you like when you're not in the Royal Opera House and you're going out to see things? What are you looking for? What kind of things have you liked seeing?
Oh, I love watching great actors. I think watching a great play really fulfills me, and you know, seeing someone transcending this earth and becoming someone else, I think is just one of the most beautiful things you can witness. Sometimes I like actually watching a musical if the musical sounds interesting and I like the design, or I hear the music has changed, something I love. I went to see Cabaret the other. I've seen it 3 times, the new production, the Kit Kat Club.
Oh yeah, Cabaret.
And I was mesmerized as well by the whole thing. So I think like being out there in London, that's for me the greatest gift about me being here. I'm here obviously because the Royal Ballet is my home, but then as well because London is the hub of culture that I don't think I could ever find in another city.
Yeah.
There's no comparison. There's just so much happening, and in small theaters, even going to a pub and there's a theater in a pub on the top floor, and you get this incredible intimate one-person show, and I just always think like, how could this ever happen anywhere else? You know, it's just so unique to this place. And I think, I mean, and you know, going to Saldersfels a lot, I love seeing what other choreographers are doing and other companies, and that really fulfills my life. Really, it just really brings more experience to me.
Yeah. What do you think your curiosity has given to your life? Because you start at a point, you know, in Lisbon where, you know, ballet is a really unusual career for you to end up in. You haven't seen any ballet. You're doing African dance. What do you think curiosity and has given you, really? How has it affected your
It's interesting.
progression?
You know, when I first went and did the audition for the school, the ballet school there, I had no idea of the world, and it all looked a bit daunting. I didn't feel like I would probably fit in very much, but I didn't think much of it because you're young. But then the sense that I got of fitting in and belonging was so instant as I walked into those doors, and I suddenly saw all the other kids that resembled me, and I was like, wow, this never happens, because I was the odd one out where I came from, you know, like even doing African dance, I was like just very different and odd, and I think
Because they were all playing football or what?
There was no boys in the African dance group. I was the only boy, so that was already strange for most other guys. But then going to this school where everybody just seemed so elevated and artistic, and the teachers really cared about you and what you were eating and how you were coping and everything, just felt like really nurturing. And I was like, yeah, I need to be in this world. So that's how we went.
And was it a sort of physical satisfaction? I mean, I do remember talking to Ed sitting here, I think, and we were talking about different people's routes into ballet, and he very much found it as a kind of physical sense of achievement, and wasn't that interested for quite a long time in ballet as a communicative form. How was it for you? What drew you there?
Well, I can imagine Ed coming to the studio with that body and just feeling like all sorts of possibilities. But that was very different for me. Obviously, my body wasn't very like ballet-like or anything like that. But what I enjoyed was every time I did like a little smile to the audience or to my teachers, I got so much back. And I was like, wow, like I can really use my personality to find my way around, and I think that was always my way to enjoy the ballet. And I think people were more excited about the fact that I liked performing and I would smile and I would be really entertaining rather than what I was actually physically delivering in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. And how much has it been a battle with your body? How much do you feel that you're kind of all the time trying to sort of alter your...
Yeah, I always wanted more. I always want, and I think only now I'm growing into accepting what I have and, making peace with it. I've always wanted to be, I want to be taller, I want to be longer, I want my legs higher, I want more feet, I want my neck this way. And I've had so many things for so many years like this. And what I'm really encouraging other dancers in the company and other people that I might come across is to really make peace with that as young as you can, because then there's so much more you can develop from, and you see it when someone just like understands what they have and they're like, okay, how do I find ways now to navigate this world that, to be honest, a lot of those things that I saw in myself really come sometimes from external view of what people of me and of what ballet should like and line and everything. Which I think when you have a dancer that has the perfect line and the perfect physique, ballet just looks so beautiful.
Yeah.
It looks so beautiful. But why can ballet look a bit challenging? Why can ballet look a bit different and odd? And I'm starting to accept that, because for so long before I came to England, my big dance vision was Russia, because all my teachers were Russian. And I mean, yeah. I even went to Bolshoi. I went to the competition in Moscow, and just being around all these crazy bodies and everything, I just made me even more think like, oh my God, I have to really like project my performance and really make the audience love me. So I was always like this in the competitions, like, love me, love me, look at my face. I'm interpreting this solo. And I guess that was a plus, but as well, it makes you look a bit desperate, because you just think like, oh my God, I need to make them like me. But then when you accept what you have, you actually think like, no, they don't need to like me. I need to like myself. And by doing that, then it will attract in a much more deeper way.
Yeah, yeah. And often, I do agree with that, because often, you know, people who haven't found it entirely easy end up being the most interesting dancers. I mean, I often find that, you know, they're the ones I want to watch. They're the ones I'm drawn to. What was it like when you arrived here at 16? Because it must have been colder.
Yeah, I guess.
And a shock. I mean, what was it like coming to the school?
I
at
came with such an
16?
excitement. I had such high expectations about the school. That was for me my favorite thing. And when I left, my mom told me, like, I never forget, she grabbed my hand and as I was going to the plane, and she said, because I came alone with my dad, and she said, there's just so much expectation on you, because, you know, a Portuguese guy going to Royal Ballet School was big for my school in Portugal. Was like, wow, you know, you have everybody thinks that you have this wild personality and this crazy, everybody thinks that you're going to get lost and you got to really prove yourself wrong, and the others that you can focus. And so my biggest goal coming here was to be a really good student and to learn. And I mean, I had so many misconceptions of dancing, and I was like Russian trained, which I think is a beautiful training, but maybe for my physique, not the best way to you know, progress. And when I got here, the placement, the arm positions and everything, and then suddenly I started researching more Kenneth Macmillan and, you know, Frederick Ashton, and this was again the curiosity you're talking about. The curiosity kicked in so early, and my roommate was Matthew Ball, and again another curious monster. So we both just went to, you know, Southernfeld all the time, and it just, the world opened up. It was like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
that's how you say. And I just thought, like, wow, there's so much. And the teachers were challenging, and it didn't feel like I was special, you know. Everybody had something, which for me as well was very humbling, because I came from Portugal where I would smile and people would say like, wow, you know. So, you know, here no one cared about if I was smiling or projecting. Is the placement right? Is the arm correct? And then you start, you know, in these studios, you start looking around at the legacy of people that, you know, have been here, and you started researching them, and then you see, and that's what really made me go like, okay, I found my place, because you have to be a bit of a maverick to make it here, and you have to be special, and I started feeling more that way as I got the style and the atmosphere and how people dealt with each other, and
That's a really interesting observation. I think it is true that within the kind of bounds of English British ballet, there have been a lot of mavericks, a lot of people you wouldn't necessarily thought, you know.
Even Dame Belgray, incredibly tall, long in those times, and just makes me think like, wow, especially in those times where probably like the smaller ballerina was a look, I don't know, and that's the kind of, and then we have Wayne Sleep, which is the different extreme, and I just always feel like, wow, it really is a space for artists. And once I got there, I started all those preconceived ideas of me being in a class with all these boys that were 6 foot. I started forgetting that and thinking like, focus on your speciality, you know.
What do you like about Ashton? Because I mean, a lot of your early successes were in Ashton, and, you know, wonderful. I mean, wonderful colas, and I mean, what did you like about it?
I feel like I haven't done enough. I want to do more of his work. I think I've done incredible masterpieces, and I want to repeat them. Not saying that I want to do all the repertoire, because I feel like, you know, I don't think it's quantity, it's quality, and obviously I want to reprise again colas. I think when I think of perfect ballets, the ballets that show everything that this art really is about, especially classical ballet like this, and romantic, that's it. I think it's perfect. The set, the music, the company, the costumes, it's just the choreography, it's the perfect ballet in my opinion. And I think what I felt with him is that it's a challenge, and when you are faced with a challenge, you have to bring your A game, and you cannot do a Ashton half done and not really fully commit. And if you bend, you have to bend. If you feel happiness, you have to have the greatest joy. So I feel like it really is an extreme and beautiful, delicate style, and I that's why I love it so much.
Yeah, and it plays to your speed, doesn't it?
It's speedy.
Because
it's speedy.
Very fast.
Oberon is a huge challenge, which I need to probably do 50 more times in my life, because it's never possible to achieve it, especially after such legacy with Anthony Dowell and everything. And it's a ballet that I cannot wait to repeat, because I know I can do it better.
Right.
I know I can work it more.
Yeah. And what we started to talk a little bit about what you would like to see come in terms of new work more. What kind of things are you thinking about when you talk about sort of ballet needing to move into the 21st century?
So there was this article that I did not long ago where the headline was, "Why are there no queer ballets, gay ballets?" And that was definitely not what my point was. You know, there have been incredible queer masterpieces, and people have created, like, for many years, works that really not to that part of the world. My idea is that I feel like we should be taking, we should be able to have, like, a ballet that really represents a bit of the world that we're in that aspect, sexuality. I feel like the fact that we haven't really explored and given a full night to explore a story of love between two women, two men, I think that would be something that I think would be really quite refreshing and really quite would be as well like a bit of a gift to everyone that has with a different sexuality that has been part of the history of what ballet is today. Yeah. And although for so many years, like the idea has been like, you know, woman and a man, a romantic story and stuff, like, I think would be a really refreshing thing to see. And to see
because you got in trouble with Matthew Vaughan, didn't you?
Yeah.
He said, "I've done loads of queer ballets."
Yes.
But to see it at a full length.
I personally think that in the shape of ballet, I wonder what that would do for ballet. You know, how can we progress ballet in that way? Because Sleeping Beauty, Swan Lake, Cinderella, all these amazing classes are not going nowhere. How can we add something that assimilates that grandeur, that looking at love like that? How can we look at love like that, but a different type of love? I think that would be really refreshing, and I think the audiences would really enjoy to see it.
And I do think it's really interesting with you that you have. At some levels, you don't resist labels. At some levels, you're quite happy to say, you know, I'm here and I'm black and I'm gay, and so to reach out to people in that way. Do you find that people contact you who, you know, maybe are thinking about ballet and maybe feel it isn't for them? I mean, how much is there a sense of trying to encourage other people into this lovely art form?
Yeah, I've been so aware of what can I do apart from doing my best on stage and working really hard, because I think that is the main point. You can do 5 million interviews and have all these points. If you then the cream is not well stirred on stage, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So my craft is my favorite thing, obviously. But then as well, I do get messages from young kids in Brazil or in actually Kenya, and they're asking me advice, and I then realize, oh my God, I have people looking up for me, and I do realize that I'm a bit of a change, and I was dramatically influenced by Sing Carlos. Yeah. I can't tell you. I was 10 years old, and I was doing one of the little, you know, pageant kids in Don Quixote in a production in Portugal, and Carlos was the big guest coming in, and seeing someone like that, you know, being the main guy, and how everyone responded to his talent just was like the meaning of representation, you know. And so I'm really aware that someone around the world, I don't know where, might be looking at me that way. So I'm always really aware that I always want to show the most vulnerable, most humble, most real version of me always, because I'm going to be here for a couple more years, and then it's going to be passed on to someone else. And I hope that the years that I was here, I was true to myself, and I was true to what I believe in, and I never did anything halfway. And that's why I always try to be as honest. And if someone tells me, sometimes in interviews I get in trouble because I just open up, and then I'm like, oh, maybe I should have not said it that way. I have to craft myself a bit better, because then obviously people might get upset or anything like this. And that's never my point, because I'm not I wish I was a political person or someone with a vendetta, but I don't. Unfortunately, I'm not. You see what you get what you see, and that gets you in trouble sometimes. But I always just think of what's going to be left of me when I'm no longer dancing and relevant, and what I left behind. And I think that's what I want to be.
How much difference did it make to you that Carlos was here when you joined? How much, you know?
Carlos almost transcended race, sex. Carlos for me was just like this. It's just transcended everything that was very human in a way for me. You know, I just looked at him and I saw like almost like a god. You know, and having him here, I never really thought like, oh, obviously when I was a kid and saw that someone with, I thought of the hair. Yeah. Someone with similar hair to me was like doing all these amazing Prince roles and everything. That was probably what I thought. I didn't think, oh, he's black, and I didn't think much of this. And then having him in a company and seeing Carlos like motivating me to have my hair out more, and exploring my effervescence, and he always was very, very pro that, and that is fantastic, because he made me feel really comfortable very, very young in a company, which is a plus. Yeah. And how much do you think the company has changed? Because I feel that it is changing all the time. And I know that Joe Sissons did a thing about having a Nutcracker wig that's called Crows, which is brilliant, really. Yeah. I mean, how much do you feel that it is changing? I think the company has changed a lot, but it was never really, I never felt like it was a space that it was very closed-minded or anything like this. I feel like they are really welcoming of new energy and new people with new ideas, which Joseph Sissons, for example, has taught me a great deal about how he sees the world and how our community is like, and it has been incredible. I've learned so much from him, and he's incredibly brave, and he has such a fresh point of view, which challenges sometimes what I believe, and I think that's great to black people to have different opinions or anything, and I learned so much, and I love that. And even the fact that he has the brain and the ideas to do a cornrow Prince wig, and I think like that's how you develop dance. That's how dance moves forward. It's small things like this. It's not. You don't have to remake the whole book, but it's like little things like this that chip into like creating more paths, and I think that's fresh, that's refreshing. Yeah. No, and I do feel you're right that it kind of has that sense of constant change. So in the most traditional production, of the Nutcracker, you just got that sense of movement going on, which I think is brilliant. It's welcoming. Yeah. Random questions. Do you notice any difference between working with male and female choreographers? Because you said that Kathy and Chris were very different, but I mean that might just be down to their personality. Yeah, maybe I do. But maybe not. Maybe I do, actually. I don't know. Maybe it's in the way that the energy. Obviously, there's very different energies in a studio when I think like you have a female and a male. I believe that's why I love having those rehearsals where you have a female coach and a male coach, right. And they both bring this nuanced energy through. And I feel like it is very different. There's a difference, but not. They are both. Fortunately, I've only worked with really great geniuses, so they all share that in common. But then as well, is a deliverance maybe, yeah. Yeah, and do you, in what ways do you think, though? Do you analyze it at all? I think probably has to do with estrogen and testosterone. I'm not sure. It must have been it's something chemical. I'm very sensitive to the balances in that. It's not so much in anything else. I think it's just the way that sometimes I think I'm really pro-woman. I love being in front of. I love women. I love that's one of my biggest passions is just like the beauty of women. And so obviously when I'm maybe in a studio with Crystal Pite, I think she does have a very motherly, nurturing way of talking and approaching work, and then you have someone a bit more that has a lot of strength, like Chris Wheeldon. He's a very strong character. He has, it's just a more direct way. So I think as well it has to do with personality. I'm not sure if it's actually about sexes. I think I think that's possibly right. I mean, I do think that's really interesting. Of it, whether it does come down to gender or whether it is personality, and I suspect it is personality more than anything else. But I'm always interested in that. And what do you have like a dream part that you would like to be made for you? Have you got things that you
would like to?
Ooh.
Have you got something that you in the back of your mind that you think, oh, would be nice if
So
somebody...
it's so funny because I was watching a documentary the other day about Jean-Michel Basquiat, and I think he's such an incredible character, this guy. And my God, died at 27, a very dramatic end. And the fact that he was such an artist, I thought like, wow, wouldn't it be so cool to portray a painter?
Yeah.
Like I think portraying people that are alive is such that were alive, and you have so much footage of them. It must be so exciting and daunting for an actor.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's plenty of characters and things. I mean, I do love. I'm glad you said creation, because I think creation is like the thing that keeps me really excited about being here, especially here where we do so much of it.
Yeah, yeah, and all the time. And how much is fight? You know, like with Woolf words, how much does that feel like creation? That you're stepping into somebody else's, finding your own way into a part.
So I obviously have been looking at Ed ferociously, like how did he do that and do that and this, but then it's his body's. You cannot replicate.
So different.
How do you say? It's not replicable.
Replicable, yeah.
It's impossible. It's impossible. His physicality is 1 in a million. So then I'm there like thinking, oh my God, I'm literally the opposite of Ed. How am I going to make this work when he can get his arms, you know, everywhere and do all these crazy poses? And what has been interesting is that Jenny Tattersall, she's working with us, and she does not allow us to look at the original. So
Right.
she's teaching the movement, and then we have to interpret it like Wayne would want Ed to interpret it, you know, because this is the interpretation of Ed of Wayne's movement. So then I have to kind of forget what I saw and try to interpret it how if that was Wayne in front of me telling me that this is the step.
Yeah.
But then as well, you have to, it keeps it fresh, because I think we're going to see a complete different Woolf works this year,
Yeah.
because it's an all new cast. There's basically no one from the old cast in there, so it's going to be a whole new experience. I think that's what Wayne wants.
Yeah.
That's why he casted me in such a different role.
And how do you approach the classical princes? Because you've got a few of them coming up. So you've got you've got Nutcracker, and then you've got Sleeping Beauty, and then you've got Cinderella. So 3 contrasting, but all very classical princes. How do you approach
These
that?
are the hardest. These are the hardest. I hold these roles with such regard, and the standards that it has to be, and the line and the look. I'm a bit an hypocrite when it comes to that. I do love seeing like those classical dancers. They really just make sense to me in this. So then when I do these shapes on the studio, and I try to find that within me, it's a challenge. A challenge that I welcome, because I know challenge is growth, and through challenges you shape yourself better, and you get in better shape, and you understand it. But it's a very difficult thing for me to see in myself. But again, it's that process again that if I can find a way to do it, because I've seen many dancers that I can connect with do it, and it just is so effortless. And I want to find that effortless quality to it as well, and trust in myself.
Yeah. And how do you feel about doing Cinderella? Because it's been a bit since Cinderella is on, and it is one of the most beautiful Ashton ballets. I mean,
I know.
how's your research been taking you on that?
So it's really quite funny, because when I came in 2010, the Royal Ballet was doing Cinderella.
Right.
Sylvia was an incredible season, season. And I, obviously being me, cheeky, used to go into their office there and ask Rachel Allings, which now works with us, to give me the standing tickets.
Yeah.
So I think I saw 9 Cinderellas with several casts. There were guests from Canada coming, as well as the principal. And I saw so many different casts, and I fell in love with Cinderella, and with the Prokofiev score, and with the Ashton choreography. And I just thought, like, gosh, this is incredible. So then getting cast in it again, I feel it's very daunting, because I hold it in my regard so highly, and you know, to be that clipped and that clean, and not contemporary. There's nothing contemporary about it.
No.
There's nothing modern about it. That it's really a real fantasy, and if you can deliver that to the audience just goes to this other level. It transcends again. It's that transcendent quality that classical ballet has, and I think that is a very hard thing to know if you're going to do or not until you really grasp it.
Yeah. Who are you dancing it with? Who are you doing it with?
It's interesting. I'm doing Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella with Akane, which we
Okay.
haven't danced
You
much
haven't danced
together.
much together,
She
yeah.
obviously has that quality of transcending and just being this delicate beauty and just so clean and gorgeous. So maybe it would rub off on me. I wonder. I hope.
Maybe she does.
I really
That
hope.
would be really interesting. And how, I mean, I suppose the other thing I was thinking is that, I mean, the variety of repertory that you do is so broad. I mean, how do you kind of, do you have things that you do that you, to keep yourself strong and able to switch between something like those princes and then Woolf works?
Since my injury, I had a bad injury, and I had to go a lot to Pilates and gyrotonics. And once I found that modality, I've been going every morning.
Right.
I've been really, really working hard on getting the smaller muscles working rather than the big muscles, so I can like maybe build different strength in my legs. And Jane, the Pilates coach, has been incredible. She even came to Lisbon to watch to Giselle, yeah, because she loves so. Yeah, so I have developed a great relationship with her, and that has really helped me maybe like keep my body at bay, because I do, if I'm doing Crystal Pite for 3 months, it is very low, and you know I'm obviously have very muscly legs, so they'll get more muscly. And then how do you then shape in time to have, again, that transcendent look of Cinderella and everything? So I'm always really aware of that. And that comes as well with the way you eat and recover and stretch. Those technical bits really help you keeping it at bay. And I'm not perfect. I sometimes don't want to stretch, and I want to go for a drink and, you know, enjoy my life. But when I don't do it, when I don't keep an eye on it, I do feel like it goes off the rails quickly.
Did the pandemic make a difference? Because it was so hard for everybody in that period. Was it really hard to come back after that? Did you find?
I was on the phone with Kevin, because Kevin was like, "Oh, we're doing a gala. What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I want to do Ashton. I want to do something like, you know." And Kevin said like, "Do la film gardée?" And I was like, "Oh my God, yes, let me jump." And I was doing it that, and I remember getting so tired, like I've just done a full ballet, the full la film gardée, and I just did like 2 minutes of it. And I was, oh wow. And then we had Tchaikovsky Parda and all these incredibly hard stuff, and they were so painful, and I'm just like, I cannot wait to do it again with a bit more build, because I think a shape during the season is very different from being off and doing it, because it builds in your muscles. Your muscles build stamina, strength, actually more intelligence, because it's not just boom and you jump. You know, it's how you take off and how you land, and so the body was a bit uneducated in the beginning when I got back.
Right. And have you got dream parts that you hope that Kevin's going to schedule and that you will be able to step into?
I know that there's a beautiful Kenneth Macmillan celebratory triple bill coming up next year, which I don't know if it's out yet, but there's some ballets in there that I think are really interesting. And Ashton as well. There's an Ashton one. So I'm really open to new challenges, but actually I feel like I'm really full. I've had incredible meals this season and the past season. I'm really well fed emotionally, artistically. So I'm not desperate for anything. I really just want to see how it goes and get surprised a bit, like Wolfworks is a surprise for me. I thought I was going to be a wave. And you know, it's nice to be able to do something that I wasn't expecting. So.
Yeah. And it is a consolidation, isn't it? I mean, I know that you talked right at the start about that kind of finding new things within you and finding new emotions. So I guess it is to some extent just building on that of your discoveries of what you want to do going forward.
And it's interesting because sometimes as well seeing your colleagues doing something that you might be really wanting to do, and then you see them as well grow in that way, and you just think like, wow, we do really all need our little space and our little pockets of success and calmness, and you know, back and forward is not, you can't always be in the front of it. You have to, you know, it's like a bit like waves, in and out, and accept that sometimes the wave is in your favor, sometimes it's not. And I think that being in that space is really good for your mental health as well. So you're not like hungry, and actually then losing sight of the beautiful things that are happening to others as well.
And I guess you'd have to be like that because you are a particularly strong sort of generation, really. You know, that your group, both men and women. It's a nicely balanced way to approach it, because you could otherwise all be sort of wrestling each other to the ground for a part.
But I think Kevin has done an amazing favor to this generation in that regard, to really like give a space for everyone to develop it at their own pace. You know, some people are going to really succeed in the Nutcrackers. Some people might succeed in the Romeo and Juliets, and I feel like it's really nice to see people having a go at it, and you know, lining their careers and finding their spaces, because for so long we had that incredible generation before us where they were really specific. You know, they had gone through all of that process, so they really found that, yeah, I'm a Macmillan. I really identify with this. I love the Ashtons, and I feel like we are still all trying to find, because we are still young as a generation, trying to find our little corner where we feel most. At the moment, it feels like everybody just, you know, has to go, finding it.
And what has been your favourite so far? Do you have a favourite so far?
I think Mayerling. Mayerling really, like, because for me personally, I finished the show and I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to go for a drink and celebrate. I just wanted to go home and cuddle up in my bed and just be like so content with myself, because it wasn't about anyone, you know, proving it for anyone or doing it for. It was just the feeling that I felt of really discovering something in me and doing that for myself. It's indescribable, and it felt like I did something good for me. You know, and I think that's what it's so special about this role.
Yeah.
And when I look at the other ones that I like as well, like Romeo, I cannot wait now to do it again, to try and get that feeling, you know, of like, what have I done for myself in this part that is gonna sit well with me? Because you know, you always want more. You are like, am I this enough? Am I romantic? Am I, you know, it's nice to just find that.
Well, it was an enormous pleasure for us in the audience as well. So it really did feel special. So thank you for that. Shall we do some questions?
Yes.
And then I can always come back in at the end. Oh, sorry, you need a microphone. Oh, will you take mine? Yeah.
Is there any major role that you haven't danced yet that you would really like to dance? Something you haven't done, but there's something there that you would really like to do.
Okay, I'm going to say this. When I first joined the company, my first ballet that I did with the company ever, I got the contract that morning, and I went on stage to do a stage call, and it was Gannett's Requiem. And, you know, we're all in a company, in a line, and the company's all together. You had Carlos, Leanne, an incredible leading cast in front, and we were all doing the step, and I had tears running down my face. That music is so beautiful for Riscore, and the costumes, it's so holy and so special. And Nickel was telling me the other day, he said, like, you were really cheeky when you joined the company. And I was like, Nickel Edmonds, he's a really good friend of mine. And I was like, because we were talking about repertoire and stuff, and he was like, I remember when we were in your first maybe week being in a company, you turned to me and said, like, I want to do that guy, which is the Carlos's part. And I think that has stayed with me for a long time. I just always looked at that and just thinking that was the epitome of, like, you know, being in a Royal Ballet, because I just had joined and got the contract, and I think that piece is so special. I think it's just so, and we haven't done it for a long time since I first joined, but it used to be done more, which I adore. I think it's beautiful. There's other stuff like little things like La Valse. I love La Valse as well, because it as well was the first thing I did that first year, and that feeling of being in a company. Yeah, you might be doing something extra, but it's really that feeling of like the glamour of the Royal Ballet, and I love that. I love those little ballets. I think they're so beautiful, the shorter works.
Any other questions in the audience? I have a few on Zoom here. Oops. So I'll read one of these. Someone asked, did you enjoy creating Like Water for Chocolate? How was the experience?
Was beautiful. Was really special, especially because I was alongside such an amazing group of colleagues, and we had a laugh, you know. And you know what? The canteen has this incredibly carrot cake, and in each break, after being exhausted for hours of working, we used to all run to the canteen and get this cake and eat it with tea. And it was just like one of those moments that you feel like family, you know. You feel like all together, and it felt like a real effort. And we used to finish the whole wheel of cake in 15 minutes break. Everybody trying to get their little slice. It's little things like this that really make you feel like at home, you know, and like those memories will stay with me, you know.
And was it extended, the creation, because of the pandemic? Or did you start making it and then have to stop?
Was like 2 years in the making.
Yeah.
We would go into a studio. Chris would be here. We'd create. We created the prologue really fast in one go. Basically, it was really so you kind of got the shape of what the ballet was going to be like. Very cinematic, very through the times, very pulled and push, and then very still at some points. We got there and we created a lot of duets very early. And but then when we got back, I think we stretched them a bit more, cut them a bit more. So it was a lot of editing. It was in and out. Yeah, it wasn't a chunk.
Yeah, because it was like Prince so that had an extended creation period.
A long process. Yeah. It adds more and less. That's a nice ballet as well, Prince. I remember loving watching it.
Another question online. Is ballet for boys as a choice losing its negativity?
I maybe. I hope so. You know, I was in Lisbon now just then, and the amount of boys in the school was really crazy to me because I came from a year of 4. We were 4 boys. So we had a very 101 kind of like thing with the teacher, and then I come here and there's 23 in class, so it was a big shock. But now the school seems to be fuller. There were a lot of kids. At least in Portugal, I felt like a huge development, and like parents being all proud about their kids doing ballet, which is refreshing.
One more question online. Have you seen much American work you'd like to do? For example, Push Comes to Shove, Glenn Tetley, Agnes de Mille, Balanchine.
Wow, that's really true. I have seen, there's an extended list. I love Jerome Robbins' work. I've had a chance to do a few, Dance at the Gathering and everything, and I think it really, the great sense of moment and freshness is really there. I love it. Balanchine, there's so much to do. I was supposed to do Prodigal Son before the pandemic hit, and that would have been an incredible, I think that's probably like one that I really would love to do that I haven't done. And I actually was doing alongside Tierney Heap, and I just seeing her as the siren was just like, and it's a biblical, very emotional story, and I think the way that Balanchine created it, and it's a very ancient Balanchine work. It's like from the Ballet Russe times, yeah. So I love the quality and being able to tap into that old-fashionedness of it. But I mean, the virtuosic side of the Balanchine repertoire is just incredible. And then Twilight Harp as well as incredible things in the upper room and everything. The American, I mean, that's a whole nother, conversation, isn't it? Yeah.
Any other questions in the audience here? Yes.
And what about your own choreographic ambitions?
Okay.
Because we know we've seen pieces in draft works. I mean, are you working on anything? What do you want to do?
So I'm very gutted that I'm not going to be able to show my piece now at Draftworks. I had started working with Joseph Sissons and Joshua Juncker. I saw this beautiful Andy Warhol documentary called, I don't know if you guys saw Warhol Diaries. It's a really beautiful piece, or a beautiful documentary series about Warhol's life. And one of those chapters is Warhol and Basquiat collaboration. And I just thought like, wow. And I seeing the documentary, I just thought like, I want to do a documentary dance piece. So basically that's my idea, was to create a movement with the words and the music that were being exposed in the documentary. Unfortunately, I had to go to Portugal to do Giselle. Joseph has to do the Prince. Josh Juncker is doing everybody's just very busy, so it's not going to happen now, but I really hope that I get to do it. I do love choreographing, and I really have fun doing it, but I'm very aware as well that it's such a long process and you cannot force it. I think you need to really find your truth and your what you really want to say. Otherwise, it just becomes movement for movement's sake, and that's not what I want to do. I really connect with telling a story, and I think that takes a lot of time. And draft works, you have 1 minute here, 30 seconds there, and you're just in a corridor trying to put things together, and I want to do it right, yeah, with more time.
Anyone else? I would like to ask a question, if I may. Guesting. You've just been in Portugal. You're all over the place doing guesting with different ballerinas, different companies and that. What is that like? I mean, just to sort of land up at an airport, go to a hotel, go to a theater, and out again in a couple of days. How does that affect you as a person, on your body, and do you like it? What are the good parts, the bad parts?
I find it incredibly challenging doing galas, but I do love the idea of exploring a different company and seeing how they work, and I think that part must be so beautiful. I haven't done much of guesting galas, yes, but galas are daunting because you arrive and it's not your home, and people have different expectations of what dance is, and they want to see 10 pirouettes, and you know, I've been in a lot of environments like that are not what I want to deliver ever anyways. So those galas can be difficult and challenging, and I always try to, like, you know, represent where I come from. You know, I want to represent the Royal Ballet really well, and the style, and I always want to look, and you do see a different, and it's interesting because you do see, yeah, American and English, and you know, like you see the differences, and it's really interesting to be part of that. But guesting is incredible. I had a chance to do a little bit of John Neumeier's work, Othello Parada, with one of his ballerinas last year, and I loved that. I really loved being in his presence and hearing him, and I thought, like, wow, how interesting it is to have different, you know, experiences, and those are enriching when we actually have time to really absorb the culture, the ideas. Yeah. So guesting can have different faces, different experiences.
Yeah. I wanted to ask actually about just pick up on the narrative ballet thing, because you seem to think in narrative. I mean, you know, the works that you like have, they're not what you would say are just kind of the pure abstract, the pure pattern. What is it that attracts you to that form of the narrative?
I mean, I guess it's the human quality to it, the humanity, the emotion. I really connect with highly emotional people. I think they're so interesting and so vulnerable, and to then see those stories being told through movement is really exciting, because I think dance is I believe that dance is like the best way to emotionally describe a lot of things through movement. I think movement has so much power. So I feel like there's such a connection. And as well, being in a company that does incredible, dramatic works like that, you really then start thinking, wow, how satisfying they feel as well to be in. And to share that experience to the audiences. I want to do that. I think the works with more dramatic and story really connect.
Yeah, it's also that thing Crystal Pite says about the fact that, because, you know, I asked her about, you know, why she keeps making ballets about subjects that are so complicated and so big and you know, really difficult, challenging to make work. And she said that it's partly about the response in the audience, that there's something about dance that makes you respond in your body and respond in your core in a way that other art forms don't. I mean, possibly opera does. I'm not really very good at opera, but yeah, and I think that's very interesting. And I think that's interesting in terms of what you said about Mayerling and Rudolph, of just sort of having that kind of confidence to be on a stage and wait for that vibration, I suppose, into the audience.
Yeah, it's totally that. I think it's getting that response that is just so subtle and so silent that it really is special when it's almost like a magnet.
Yeah.
A magnet that is going back and forward. I think that's so special when that happens. It's really.
I don't need a microphone, I can shout. You know, I want to know if you could imagine dancing symphonic variations.
Actually, I don't think so. is interesting. So, so this is interesting because it was coming around a time that I could have possibly be in it, but I think we were doing as well the Dream and stuff, and I look at like I look at all these incredible classical productions. I look at that as the ultimate challenge of purity and stillness, and I would like to believe that I would have the qualities to do that. But I think when that ballet is successfully put on and really has the right characteristics and really sits right, is when those dances that have that natural quality are there. And I've accepted that, I've accepted it, and I love being able to watch it from outside.
Yeah, though David Blair did it, didn't he, Monica? And so, I mean, he wasn't a dancer that I would describe in that way. He was a dancer I would describe as being, more in his essence like you. I mean,
I don't know. I wonder what it is about that piece. I think it's just how I've always looked at it and perceived it as, and I might be surprised, but in my eyes, I see that piece and I really think of like that specific dancer. And I don't know if the piece has transformed, because I know that this piece was created in a very important and needed time for the Royal Ballet, just after the war, and Sir Frederick Ashton just comes out with this incredible stillness and cleanness and purity, but maybe had a different meaning then that it has now. In the repertoire now, it sits in my eyes, in this very very specific typecast. I don't know why. In my head.
I think you'd enjoy the challenge.
Yeah, I do too. I think we'll start a campaign.
Oh, I love a challenge. Definitely love a challenge. I would love to see that.
No,
Tomatoes.
Let's start a campaign. Are there any other questions? If not, I think I'll let people sort of go, because I think it's been very rich. You talk quite quickly. I'm always very conscious that you talk.
I talk so fast and I talk so much.
It means that an hour with you is always incredibly rich, and like watching you on stage. So I think it's been, unless there are any other questions, I think I'll just say thank you to you all for coming out. Thank you for everybody for watching. Thank you, Marcelino, for being so
Thank you so much for loving ballet. Thank you so much for keeping us alive and being curious, because the curiosity is then reciprocated, because I want to do more. I want to be more curious. I want to stretch it more, and it's incredible. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Zoom. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. We are really lucky tonight. We have some students from the English National Ballet School with us. And I have a feeling that they have been inspired by what they've heard. They're not that much younger than you, and I hope that they've enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure having you. And we will see you one day sitting here being interviewed by Marcelino, perhaps. Anyway. So thank you for coming, and it's been an absolute joy to have Marcelino here. I really think, given the weather, he should have done a little bit of the Blue Boy from Patineur, but there we go. Anyway, it was wonderful. So thank you, and it's that time of year where we all celebrate family, friends. However you celebrate it, it's a season of lights, whatever your way of approaching it is. And so I wish you all a very bright and joyous holiday season and a wonderful 2023. And please come back soon. We'll see you all. Thank you to everyone on Zoom and to all of you here, and mostly to Sarah and Marcelino.